Hi everybody, welcome to today's webinar where we'll talk a little bit about Creo Import Data Doctor. Okay, so I just prepared a few slides and then we'll jump into Creo and get the demonstration going. So let's just quickly have a look at the agenda. So like I said, we'll discuss the Import Data Doctor. Okay, so that's the tool that you'll use as you're importing IGES files, state files, things like that into Creo, and then from there you can work a little bit with that. So just on the introductions, I'll do a little bit about boundary systems, and I've prepared a few slides on Import Data Doctor, just a few points that I want to highlight, and then we'll jump into Creo and do a demonstration. After demonstration, we can do a quick question and answer session. So if you see anything during the demonstration or on the slides, make a note of those questions, or you can type them as we go using the questions tool in the GoToWebinar. Okay, so just a little bit about myself. So I'm a boundary systems technical specialist. I've been working with Creo products for about 9 years now. More on the manufacturing side of things, so doing tool design, plastic components, things like that. So I've been using this Import Data Doctor quite a lot, being in that industry. Just a little bit about boundary systems. So these are some of the logos of the customers that we serve. So we help them with product lifecycle management, data management, CAD design and consulting. We also do simulation, and then we can also help you with product development. So I think some of the major accreditations we have, I like to highlight the PTC stuff over here. So we've got, we are Windchill certified implementers. We also preferred service providers for PTC and also a training partner. Some of the solutions we offered, so I think the main ones are the PTC ones. Then we do solid thinking, Iterate, and ZWCAD as well. Okay, so then just a few things on Import Data Doctor. Okay, so I guess you need to understand the tool, and then you can apply it properly in Creo. If you don't understand the tool and what the capabilities are, then you might struggle a little bit. So I think the important thing is it's a task-based repair tool to repair, modify, or featureize some geometry. Okay, so from there you will go and you'll create a solid, or you can leave it as surfaces and things like that. So it is a task-based thing. It's not a one-button fix-all thing. So you need to work through the data. So if you take the little blue part as an example, that's a fairly easy part. And if you look at the brownish part, that's a more complicated part. But the principles is exactly the same. So we'll be using the blue part, and I'll show you some tips and tricks on how to use Import Data Doctor. Okay, so because it's a task-based repair tool, you need to ask yourself how much time can you spend on these things, okay? And that normally is determined by what do you need the part for. Okay, so if you're importing some geometry and you only need it for a space claim, for instance, do you really need to go and spend an hour or even a minute on it trying to repair it or get it to a solid? You can assign a mass properties to a surface model. There's no need for you to have that as a solid. Okay? Then as you go a little bit further, so if you need to calculate the mass properties, so if you're going to add holes or add features to this particular imported geometry, then you need to get it to a solid state. But then again, there's certain features that you might not need, so you can take that out, and that can that will mean you spend less time on it. When you really need to spend some time on these imported models is as soon as you go to plastic injection molded parts, castings, things like that. So if you take it into the mold design, for instance, in Creo, then you're going to start cutting away the cores and the cavities using this component. So then you need a proper solid model with a decent accuracy and everything that goes with that. So I think that's the three main stages. So you either do no repairs, you assign model mass properties to it. The next step would be just to get it to a solid, because you need to add some holes here and there, so not major changes. And then you really need to get stuck into it is if you go to the mold designs and the castings and things like that, or even machine that. Then you need to get a proper model out of this. Okay, so just something I wanted to highlight as well is the importance here of the accuracy settings that you use. Okay, so as you import this geometry, I think most of the time they will have an assigned accuracy to it that was created in whatever program it was designed in. So the ideal situation, you need to match that or even better that. And then if you go to the mold designs and things like that, you need to use the same accuracy in the part that you will use in your castings and your machine parts and those type of things. So this ties a little bit in with the templates and things that you'll use. So I'll discuss that as well when we do the demonstration. But just keep your accuracy in mind when you start using these components. And then play around with it as well. Try different accuracies and see how the model is being imported. Maybe just a little bit lower accuracy will enhance it a lot more. Then you don't have to do that many repairs. So just do one medium, one low, and one high, and that's going to give you an idea of what's going to be best for that import geometry. Okay, so just quickly my contact information. So I normally put this up for the guys that need to run or things like that. So if you need to contact me, that's my email address. So you can drop me a mail at any time, asking questions or get some feedback. I'll jump onto that. If I can't answer you, then I'll get the right guys to contact you, and I can get PTC involved as well. So you can take a screenshot of that if you need to, and then you can just drop me a mail. Okay, so let's jump into Creo. And so we're going to import that, the first file. Let's just quickly go and grab that. Set my working directory. Okay, and the first file that we'll import is an IGES file. So just a very, very basic part. And I'm quickly going to run through these profile settings. So these profile settings, you can set that up. You can change it each time you import geometry. So if you get data from a specific customer and it's always the same, you can go and you can create these profiles and you can just add them, and you know that's the best results for that particular customer. So you can have as many profiles as you like, or you can adjust it on the fly, like I would do now. So in these profiles, you can say use templates, and then you can go and specify those templates. So if you have a particular start part or thing that you want to use, maybe some extra datum planes because you're using imported geometry, alternate mass properties, things like that, maybe different layer configuration. You can create a template for that, and you can grab that over here. Okay, so you can just go and you can go and select whatever template you would want to use. Okay, then we have a few settings on the surfaces. So what do you want it to do? Keep B-spline surfaces. So there's a whole bunch of things that you can adjust. So these will vary from import to import. So play around with it, see how it will react to your specific components, and see which one will get you the best results. So I'm just going to use the default stuff where I let Creo make most of the decisions. So this was the one I wanted. So you can ask Creo to go and close gaps between surfaces. So these are very nice tools. But if you're importing a 200 meg IGES file or step file, there's a lot of information in those files. So if you click these, just keep in mind that it will take a little bit longer. So Creo is going to try in the background and fix all of those things. Okay? So on some components, it's great. On others, it might not be. So my tip would be keep this off for the first time you open up a component. See actually what it is, how many errors there are. Is there a lot of missing surfaces, open edges, things like that. And then when you do your second run, maybe say you'll close some gaps and things, and just check how long that will take. And if the result is a lot better, then you know you can go with those settings. So play around with them, test them a few times before you get cracking and start fixing up that geometry. And some of the filters, what do you want to import? So I want everything to be imported, and I think that's it on the profile stuff. So I'm going to leave my default. I'm not going to use a start part or template or anything. So this is just going to be the IGES or the step file I want to import. Okay, so you can see my part being imported. Because I didn't use a template, you will notice I've got no datum planes, no datum axis, no nothing like that. If I used a template, all of that information would have been in there. Okay, so you have to choose how to approach that, because now if I want to put this into another assembly, that would mean I either need to use the geometry, or I need to go and create those datum planes and the center point and all of that. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so how do we get into import data doctor? So you'll see in the model tree there's an imported feature. If you click on that, it's going to highlight the component. If you right click on that and you say edit definition, that's going to put you into import data doctor or into the import dashboard first. So from here, if you want to go into the import data doctor editing environment, that's that little box with the first 8 cross on it, and if you click that, you are inside import data doctor. Okay, so as soon as you start working with this geometry, like with most of the dashboards within Creo, just work your way from the left to the right. So first thing that you can do is you can check your geometry. Okay, so let's just quickly go and check how bad this really is. So we do a geometry check, and if we expand that, let me just drag it a little bit more to the center. Then you'll see that there's one bad wireframe curve. So we can see there's some nasty stuff in there. Okay, so in this part, I only have one bad curve because it's a smallish part. Your part might have 20 or 30 or whatever the total is. But the way that you're going to fix this is exactly the same way. Okay, so we've got one bad curve over there. And then we've got a few wireframe issues. So those curves, not really happy. So there's a gap between that. We have a gap over there at the bottom. So you can work your way through this model. So those curves is also bad. Okay. So there's a few errors in this component that we'll need to fix up. Okay, so now we know what we're dealing with. So now we have to decide. So remember those 3 points. Will this component just be a space claim? If it is yes, I close this, I can go and I can just assign the mesh properties and everything to this component. I don't need to spend time on this. If I need to make some modifications to this, so maybe I need to change the rounds on here, maybe make it smaller or bigger for machining purposes, then I'll need to get this into a solid. Okay. If I'm going to create a mold component, core and cavities from this, then I need to make sure I've got the right accuracy and I've got a decent model. Okay. So let's say for this exercise, I want a decent model. So I need to go and fix everything there is to fix. Okay, so we've done the geometry check. We know what we're dealing with. So the next step, or the next column is the structure column. So here you can go around and you can change the structure of your model tree. So I think one of the components I'll do a little bit later, it's got more components in there. So if it will basically see it as an assembly. In this one, we just have a stray surface over here. And if we highlight that, we can see, well, that seems like it imported that corner twice. So let's just hide that and see what happens. Okay, so there is a surface there, so I'm 100% certain I don't need that surface. So I can go and I can delete that. Or I can exclude it, that will keep it. But it's not going to be part of my of the end result. Okay, so I don't need that. I can go and delete that if I want to. Okay, so we were dealing with one component and all the surfaces are in that component. So I can click them individually and work with them. I can activate a surface over here and then I can just work with that particular surface. Okay, so if I go and I say display wireframe, it will only do it for that active component. Okay, so this is a way to just narrow down what you're working with a little bit. So I've got, let's say, maybe 100 surfaces in here. But if you import an impeller or something like that, there's going to be maybe thousands of surfaces. So you need to narrow down that a little bit and work with that part in sections. Fix one section, then move on to the next section. But this is a nice way just to get control over that scenario where you activate the surfaces that you want to work with, and then you can display whatever you need to see. Right. So these vertices that I've displayed now, I can only see everything that's related to that surface. If I, for instance, pick the part and I say display vertices, you see it's showing it for everything. Now, if you work maybe in that orientation, I mean, this is not making sense at all. You've got dots and things in the background. If you need to drag these surfaces, it can be a little bit of a tricky situation. So activate this section that you want to work with, and then your display filters will only show for those active surfaces, just making your life a little bit easier. Okay, so let's switch that off. Okay, and then if we go to a wireframe, you'll see different colors, and that's also going to give you some information on this particular model. So let's change it to wireframe. So ideally, you would like to see purple edges or gray edges. That will show you that you can solidify certain surfaces or certain sections. Okay, so yellow edges means those are one-sided edges. That's where there's gaps or something is wrong. That's sections that you will need to go and fix. Okay, so once again, this is a simple component. If you bring in those big ones, that's not always easy to see. Things like text on a component. I mean, those are horrible sometimes. So an easy way to go and get all of this information is using the search tool. So you can use the search tool, and you can say, I want to search for edges. Sorry, just say edges, and then you're going to select type. And you're going to say, well, I want to search for one-sided edges, and it's going to find all the one-sided edges. So if you grab all of them. You can easily pick them up where they are. You can also use this for selection. So if I throw them over to this side, when I say close, those are already selected. So just making your life a little bit easier to go and identify these edges instead of going through your component and zooming from one section or panning from the one section to the next section, and surfaces get highlighted, things like that. It's just sometimes not an easy thing to do in complicated parts. So your search tool is golden in the import data doctor tool. And then what we can do as well with the search tool is we can look for those gaps. Okay, so let's type in gaps at the top, and we're just going to give it a value. So that's just giving it a range what to search for. And you can see it identified 2 gaps. Okay, so it's not everything. So depending on my value that I set, that will identify gaps. So for this exercise, I'm just going to select those 2. So you can see there's the one in green and the other one on the other side in green as well. Okay, so let's go and close those gaps. So if I throw them to the other side, I'm going to select them. You can see they are selected. So now I need to tell Creo, what do I need to do with these? So you need to add them to the wireframe first. Okay, so I'm going to do that, and then if I hit the repair tool, you'll notice the black arrows over here. It identify that, and I'm going to say OK, and then you can see those edges turned to purple, which means they are joined and they are 100%. Okay, so those were the 2 that I've selected. Okay, great, happy with those. Okay, so the repair tool also fixed this edge over here. So let me quickly undo that. So you can see that. So you can see this was also an edge that with some issues. Because I've done the repair tool and they're so close to each other, Creo fixed that automatically. Yeah, which brings me to another point. If you're working with a surface model where tangency and things like that is really important, I guess a good example will be a surface like this. So you can run the repair tool multiple times and you can fix the tangency. And Creo will maneuver or shape those surfaces each time you run the repair tool. Okay, so use the repair tool only on certain sections, because otherwise it might affect other sections in your part. So what I should have done when I repaired that is only pick this surface and that surface and then run the repair tool. So you can see it's not going to change all the other geometry. If I fix that, only that edge will be fixed, or the gaps that I specified in that surface. If I pick this edge and that edge, run the repair tool, only those surfaces will be affected. Okay. Don't use it like this and run the repair tool on everything, because it's going to change all the other surfaces as well. Okay. In some cases, in this component, it's not going to make much difference. If you're working with a complicated surface, it might change your part, and you won't be aware of that. Okay, so that was the gap or the search tool using the gaps. You can also manually go and specify these gaps and then fix that. So we're going to use this tool and we're going to define a gap. So you need to select the edges. So I'm going to say, well, there's one edge. Now I'm going to use my second edge. Now it's going to automatically add it to the wireframe. Remember, when we used the search tool, we had to go and select add to wireframe. If you use this, you don't have to. You say OK, and we say repair, and that's it. That's closed. Okay, and so you can go and you can fix this one. Let's do another example with this one. Same way. say define gap, that one, second edge, and we say repair, and edge is closed. Okay, so then I want to show you a different way of fixing this one over here. So we're going to use the align. Let's say edit. Let's quickly, maybe I should select the edge. No, well, let's use the align is on a different part, sorry. So we're going to just specify the gap in this one as well. And let's repair that. Okay. Okay, so we've got most of it fixed. We just have these one over here. So I'm going to just put that in shaded view so we can see it a little bit better what's happening there. So we've got a missing component here, or missing surface. So there's a few ways that we can go and change this. So the first way would be to use a boundary blend within the import data doctor. So there's a few ways that you can go and create things. So you can create curves, sketches, and datum features. Right? So I'm going to use a boundary blend, and we're going to pick the edges. It works exactly the same way as your normal boundary blend tool. I'm going to create that surface. But notice what it did. It put that surface over there. So outside of my component. So all that I need to do is just drag and drop that in there. And if I put my component in wireframe now, that's fine. I can go and I can make this a solid component. So let's quickly, now I want to do a section. Yeah, so that's solid now. I just want to do that last step again because there's a different way that you can do that. So if we go back into import data doctor, I'm just going to grab that surface again. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to say okay. We're going to keep it a surface for now. Then you can go and you can create surfaces and features outside of import data doctor, and then just go and use the collapse functionality. So if there wasn't a full option in the import data doctor, and I couldn't use style or things like that, or any of the other surfacing tools, so you can go and use them, and then just collapse that into the import geometry. And that's going to give you the same result. So let's quickly do that. I'm going to use the second direction, specify these surfaces or edges. And you'll notice that we have a boundary blend feature outside of the imported feature. I could just say collapse that. Edit, collapse. No, that's not supposed to happen. Delete. And let's just quickly create that one again. First direction, second direction. Okay, I'm missing a click over here. Okay, let me just double check that, and then I'll get back to this one. Okay, so let's quickly go on to the next component, and it's also a IGES file with some big gaps in it. Once again, I'm just going to use the default Creo setup, and you can see we've got a surface over here that's way off. Okay, so let's go and edit definition there. We're going to go into import data doctor. Okay, and we've got that surface over here, so let's quickly drag that into the component. And I just want to delete the edges on that one. So I don't want Creo to modify anything on that. So we're just going to delete those edges. And then what we'll do is we can drag this component around. So I'm just going to show my vertices. So I can say move vertex, and I can take these and I can drag them as I need them to be. So like that. Now I can use my normal tools like I did in the previous one, the gap tool, and go and close that gaps. The other thing that you can do, I'm just to undo everything I did there, is to align. So I can say, we'll pick the surface, say align, and this is going to give me some options. So it picked up 4 edges on this particular surface that I've selected. So I can tell it, well, align certain edges must be tangent, or it should only be to a position or curvature or normal, or so you can change that if you need to. So I want this one to be tangent, so it's highlighting the one that I need to specify. So I'm going to say, well, you need to go to that particular edge. Okay, then you also notice it's giving me these drag handles, so I can go and I can drag this surface with those drag handles. So once again, that's going to get you closer to what you actually need. And then I can say, well, side 2 is that one over there. I'm not too worried about that one. I'm more worried about the third one. So I can pick that edge, and that's going to grab it over there. Okay, so now because of certain tangencies, it might limit certain edges. So if I go to side 4 and I try to pick this edge over here, it's not going to do that. Okay, it can't be tangent to that side and that side. It's going to deform the component. Let's see if it's going to take position. No, so it's not going to take position to the position as well. So now I can finish this, and then I can drag the vertices and things around and fix that up. Or what I can do is I can just say, well, don't make that tangent, make it position, make that position as well. And then you'll see on edge 4, now I can pick that edge. And on side 2, there's still a little bit, that's tangent, that needs to be position as well. It's still a little bit of, it's not grabbing that edge. So it's going to be, there's too much of a deformation with that. Okay, so from there I can say, okay, and I can say, well, move vertex, and I can grab that and I can move it a little bit. So maybe now I can use a gap, the normal gap feature, or and then repair that. Okay, so that's the align and the move vertex. The other one that I wanted to show was to replace in that other part. That's the one I forgot. Okay, so and these merge curves and those tools, they work exactly the same as with the move vertex. You're going to grab them and you're going to drag them around and you can manipulate that. To be honest, I don't use these tools that much. I'm more on the gap side, close gaps, fix that up. And then if I really get some bad surfaces, I mean, nothing is stopping you from just deleting that surface. Use the boundary blend tool and go and create those surfaces. I mean, there's a few clicks. So take your parts, decide how do you want to go and fix them up, and then use that method. So the idea around this is just to show you the different ways of doing that. I'll much more rather go and create a new surface quickly, and I know it's right, and start dragging vertices and things around. It's just much easier creating something from scratch sometimes than trying to fix it. Okay, so let's quickly see if I can go back to that other component. I might need to re-import this. So let's quickly close that. Close that. Just want to show you that replace functionality. Let's go import data doctor. Okay, so I'm going to grab that edge. Here we go. Okay, let me just undo that quickly and let's put in a wireframe. That's going to make it a lot easier for everybody to see. Okay, so in the first time around, I used the normal gap function to close these edges. So now I'm just going to use the replace functionality. So I'm going to pick the one edge, and I'm going to say replace with that one over there. Say OK, and that's going to fix it up as well. Okay, so if edges are close to each other, you can use the replace as well. Let's quickly see if it's going to work on this one as well. Replace. There you go. Okay, so also a really nice tool to use when edges are close to each other. Okay, so instead of searching gaps and things like that, try the replace. Depending on the geometry, it might give you an issue depending on the accuracy, things like that. Excuse me. Then that's things that you have to play around with. Okay, so I guess that's what I wanted to show in the import data doctor. I'm going to mute myself for a few minutes, get those questions in, and then I'll try to answer them. Okay, so doesn't seem to be any questions. So thank you everybody for joining us today. I'll end the webinar, and if you have any questions or if you run into any issues, please feel free to contact us, and we'll help you out. Okay, thanks everybody. Bye.